Welcome back to the Today with Tally podcast, folks. We have a great show in store for you today. We sit down with a retired U.S. naval commander who gave 28 years of honorable service to America, and now he is running for a Texas congressional seat. That is a border county in the 28th Congressional District. But first,
hello, friends, and welcome to another exciting episode of Today with Tally. The mission and goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Today with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. Ladies and gentlemen, your host of the evening, Mr. Brian Tally.
Our next guest is running for Congress. That's right, Commander J. Furman, 28 years of honorable service to our great nation. Now, he is running in Congressional District 28 in the state of Texas, which is a border county. It expands from the Rio Grande into the suburbs of San Antonio. And with that, we are honored to be joined by retired U.S. Naval Commander Jay Furman. How are you, sir?
Very good. Hey, Brian. Good to be with you today.
The Alamo. What a backdrop.
Yeah, right. You said it extends into San Antonio. My district possesses the Alamo, and never more is it more important right now that we remember the Alamo. During the Alamo Siege Week, we're on day 5 of the siege. And looking back to what brought us to today in Texas, and I think what will carry us forward as a nation.
Incredible. So, as if serving for 28 years isn't enough, you could have easily got back on that horse and kind of just rode off into the sunset and enjoyed the rest of your life of retirement. But you had somebody knocking, and you answered that call to service again, and that came in the form of running for Congress. Can you describe what inspired you to make such a run?
Well, I you could call inspiration, but I call it more like Jonah running from his Nineveh. I am a reluctant candidate. I hung up my spurs at the end of my military service as vaccine mandate whistleblower, a little disenchanted by my betters, and wore the cloth of my nation for most of my life and my family on back all the way back to our founding. And I really had to check my identity at the door at that point. And so I thought I was done. The call I answered at that moment, right upon retiring, a day before they slammed the door of my pension, I was from a Bible study buddy of mine who had a nonprofit that focused on counter child sex trafficking. Asked if I wanted to help out, and I don't know how I don't know how you can say no to that. So, and my question back to him was, what does it look like on the Texas or the Southwest border? That's got to be the biggest influx, and they hadn't done anything there yet. And so I went down and did some investigation, and because half my career as a pilot, the other half I was what called a foreign area officer, and that describes somebody that goes to foreign places and figures out the American interest with different strange folks and works together. Well, I took that skill set down to the border, my home state border. I'd been on it plenty of times growing up. It was a regular visit for us to go down to the border and into Mexico. And that's what Texans did, and until the last decade or so. So went down there, and I came back not only just horrified on the vertical we were investigating, as child sex trafficking, but that turns out to be one fuel of the fire that's burning south of our border right now, and funding it. I came back off the border. It was about 6 months on and off in 2022. Just the scales falling off of what had approached our country. It looked more akin to borders I'd been on in Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, helping our allies defend their borders. And I've seen the worst of borders and what can happen, and if we don't stop what we're currently all living through right now. And so what was born out of that is an idea for a shockumentary to try to repaint America's image of what's happening on our border. It's not Ellis Island, folks. It's not the Statue of Liberty. Come to America, bring your poor, hope masses. We're breaking people on entry. We're luring them into our country under false pretenses. And just for our leadership who are bought off in the lie of voter replacement or increasing votes and really lowering wages and increasing the worker pool. But that's not the full story. And so I call it, I want people to get a new image. And the shockumentary was supposed to burn into people's cranial what it actually is walking up from the Darien Gap and what we're doing to these folks and bring them in who never get out of the vic of the cartel and are victimized or they're subject to unscrupulous employers here, and they're always living a second-class citizen lifestyle. Say nothing of the fact we can't afford them all. So, raped, killed on the way up, and then they arrive here, and so I wanted to repaint that picture. We had to put a plug in that documentary. My principal, Allie Bradley, and my director and producers, Hollywood level, suddenly had to go and do other things, and I couldn't figure out why. And Brian, to finish telling the story of why I'm running, I went back home and prayerfully and focusing on the family that I missed half their life and through deployments in my career, and it just wouldn't shake me. My America First friends who helped me through the vaccine mandate fight, kept on impressing on me that I needed to do something, and I, and truth be told, I knew something had to be done. I want my kids to grow up in Texas, my grandkids to grow up in Texas, but it was really clear that it was much bigger than Texas. So hence why I'm here at the Alamo today. I could not. I avoided this for some months, maybe long, almost a year, and it just it wouldn't leave me, and we prayed on it, and we finally decided to make a run, take the plunge, and take the biggest swing we could. You introduced me at Texas District 28, Congressional District. It is the essential chink in the armor on our southwestern border. The worst of the worst come through here. The worst drugs, the worst guns, the biggest cash flows. We call it the RGV, or the Rio Grande Valley. My district spans just north of Laredo and runs all the way down to Rio Grande City, 230 miles of border, the second largest border district in the country. And then it funnels up here to this spot, which is really, part of my story why I'm running too. I truly believe in this moment, Texas is America's Alamo, and that's not hyperbole. The men and women that fought this battle, who came from everywhere, and they were the people of lore. There's the James Bowies, the Davy Crockett's, the Willie Travises. They came from everywhere to found the Republic of Texas. But I don't think they knew, or all of us knew growing up, celebrating their triumph here of holding off Santa Anna until we could beat them, shortly after. I don't think we understood what they were really doing, and what I really feel is providential for all of us Texans, that we're kind of in that blocking tackle maneuver right now as a nation. If you look what Governor Abbott is doing at Shelby Park and Eagle Pass, which President Trump will be at this Thursday, I should note. It's the essential move for states' rights, but it's bigger than that. It is throwing the guide on the sand that, hey, we're not going to take this as Americans. Hey, President Biden, when you, the day after inauguration, wrote 50 executive orders, and much of which was just throwing down the back gate to the country and onto the ground, and doing the biggest Democrat giveaway in the history of this country, our sovereignty. And so, so here we are. I could not do this, Brian. I could not, got to a point where I just couldn't sleep anymore at night. And I went and filed, and I said, God, let it be yours. The answer we got back, my wife and I, was just run, take the step. Don't worry about outcomes. Just stand on the right side of the line.
Right.
And it's just, it's not me. It's going to take every man and woman in this great state to do Texas's duty right now. And on behalf of the nation. So here we are. That's a long answer. I apologize, but it's hard wrought. Yeah,
no, I mean, you had to take a leap of faith, and kind of just follow, God's, calling for you. Your wife said, go do it. This is your time. And, with your leadership and, your experience, couldn't really think of a better candidate right now to take on that district during this given time in American and in Texas history, because we all know that Texas history is not done being written. Now, you had made a reference about Ellis Island. Now, it seems as if our government was a lot more responsible back in the day. And just a quick side note here. We allowed in as a country from 1892 to 1954, over a 62-year period, 12 million immigrants. However, over the last 3 years, the government has reported 8 million. And we all know that 8 million is probably more like 10 or 12 or 15 million. Because if the government's giving me 8 million, that's a low number right there, because they've lost all credibility with me. So there's a bigger picture here going on. It seems as if the government, our own political representatives, if you will, because I can't call them leaders anymore, are completely selling us out. And I just don't know what the end game is here. We have 350 million documented Americans in this country that are naturalized citizens. What are we wanting to do? Bring in 1 billion people, 2 billion, 5 billion? What type of United States is our government wanting, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. It seems crazy that this would be healthy for any American. And certainly none of us voted on this. There was no referendum. There was no, hey, send your member to Congress and just do the big giveaway where I can't get in the ER, or my kids have to give up their schools, or the police stations are chock full of federals. And by the way, we have genocidal conditions for the folks coming in. And we have enriched and empowered the most dangerous entity in the history of the world, the most dangerous, nefarious entity, almost, because they're in the back corners. They're not a nation state, and they is the cartels. It's crazy that we have empowered this multi-billion-dollar entities who are the most sophisticated crime syndicates ever. And by the way, those guys are linked up across the world. So, and now working with nation states, Mexico being one of them, China being another one. I would say a large architect of what we're living. The real answer to your question is we need to re-understand the southwestern border as today's Maginot Line. All enemies of significance to the United States are mustered south of our border. China, Iran, Russia, and all of their fun friends, and anybody else that's a power player and that wants to take part in the dismantling of our country as the hegemon of the world. Our leadership has some sort of strange idea. Either, they're corrupted from go. I love the kids here. It's amazing. That part has not changed since I left almost 30 years ago. So this is where they need to be. So, and so these guys are down there south of the border. Obrador and the Mexican Palace is completely owned by China. I'd submit to you our highest leadership is too in this country. And that provides a nexus of evil, if you will, or what I start calling cartel capitalism that extends from Beijing, bounces into Mexico City, but really is drawn to a great sucking sound of the decline of our country, from DC itself. And so, call it corruption or call it Machiavellian, redesign of America, to a point where, we're heading towards and barreling towards a United Nations of America, and some sort of perverted open borders, utopia on earth lie, that really the only commonality between, I would submit, Beijing, Moscow and all through Mexico, with the various communist leaders down there, is communism, or a communist idea. It's got the window dressing of all that. Or actually, it's not even window dressing anymore. But the socialist lie to a popular to the popular electorate or to whoever is actually communism in disguise. And I would submit to you, even the WEF and just the open borders idea writ large is a communist idea. Certainly not an American individualist idea of limited government, constitutionally run, in a providential way. So we're losing our identity. My family lived in Europe from 2013 to 16. I deployed out of there, but we watched the figure change fundamentally forever. I hate to say that, but you can't go to Europe today and have a European vacation of old, because the Muslim, the Ummah, and I have tons of Muslim friends, but I would say the ones that want to invade Europe and change it are not my friends. And so those folks called it back in the 80s and said, hey, we're coming back, and we're going to change you, to the point now we have five calls of prayer a day in some Scandinavian countries, and there are boroughs in France that you do not walk into, to say nothing of the beheadings in the public schools. This is all being hidden by a media, a mass conglomerate media that is really handmaiden to what's going on. So you don't have corrupt heads of state who have an interest, a financial interest or political interest in the reconstructing of America and pushing it aside as the hegemon world. And I'd submit we are the exceptional nation. We are the essential nation. We saved Europe twice. We have been the light on the hill, and I fear for the descent that we're going to. If this experiment fails, there is no United States for the United States. And what I mean by that is when Britain declined after World War II, they had a soft fall, as we say in our current economy. There was a soft crash or what have you. But we're not going to have that. And really, as conservatives, we've been on the back foot since much longer than we realized. But we started realizing it during the pandemic, and then we kind of became conditioned to the same kind of looking backwards and reactionary through what I've been calling the Trojan horse vaccine, which was really an ailment for a cure, in disguise of a cure, and remdesivir after that, the fake election to follow, and January 6th false flag operation, which I've firsthand witnessed those things. Or versions too, and certainly and tangential and proximate. So I would say that what we are living now is the pre-op for the next stage. So a stage is being set for the next chapter in progressing America towards where I didn't know the vote. That we wanted to change this country in a fundamental way that would turn us upside down and really yield control and power of this country to capitals beyond or some corrupt place in New York that we call the United Nations.
There are so many Americans out there right now that are absolutely fearful of the government. And they want to help in a lot of different ways, but they don't know how to. They don't know how to organize, because every single time that you have, like, say, a group of Republicans or conservative folks who are doing the honorable thing every single day, they get stereotyped as domestic terrorists or whatever it may be, and that's just not fair, right? So you have one side that can burn down the nation for a year and still, block freeways and streets and shut down major cities for whatever protest of the month that they're doing. But if you get a group of Republicans together with American flags that are showing patriotism, they are immediately shot down and they're labeled again something very, very bad. And being labeled a terrorist, man, that's like the worst thing that the government could actually do to hardworking American taxpayers that have built this nation and has made it what it is, the values, the traditions, the history, everything about the United States that has made us great. how can we get past that? What is there a way forward? Because there are so many people that want to help, but they refuse to come out. They want to sit on the sidelines because they don't want to be labeled as a domestic terrorist.
I think that's a wise question, and I think one we all need to be asking, Brian. Listen, the othering, what I've called it, of January 6th to color an entire political movement as undesirables, and furthermore terrorists, was brilliant. False flag, political opposition move. I in this country that I've really realized it, and I say realized because more and more it's becoming apparent. How can we do that? Well, I would say get close to the source documents, read your Constitution, read your Bible, get closely linked with your community, develop actual relationships, get closer than 6 feet apart again, heal your families, and get past the fights that were put in the middle of them, and I would submit, possibly intentional separation or ripping apart of the true sinew of our communities, families, and churches. Get past that, because I tell you what, whether I've been in Africa or Middle East or Southeast Asia, or even Europe for that matter, everywhere I've been in the world professionally, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what your politics are when it comes to the security of your children. And what I'm trying to jump up and down and scream about is the coming danger of ripping ourselves apart, and the coming danger of what I call the enemy amongst us right now. So, and I'm going to speak specifically to the immigration issue. And that is, and you talked about it, and I will absolutely amen your number of being higher than the 8 to 9 million the government talks about right now of illegal entrants since January 2021. I think we're north of 10 million. We may be close to 15 million. I've been saying, hey, it's not crazy. That's 20 million, because we don't count unknown entrants in this country. We don't count the guys that come in, the unknown gotaways. At least on a public in a public forum. We statistically derive a number from that, but that's not a public thing that border or customs have done. And so it's much higher. And the really bad hombres are coming in the dark and night, carpet squares in their shoes, paying the high dollars to cartels, and they have really big things to hide, or they're people that have rap sheets that need to be hidden to get in. And so what we have in this country, what we've ingested with that number of people, is really what's been used 84 times in modern history. What I started to talk about in Germany when my family was based there, it's a human population bomb that's pushed into the middle of a country. And there's bad actors in the middle of this wretched, poor mass of people. And most, almost, the far majority are unwitting to what's going on. But if you listen to the National Sheriff's Association and what trickled out of that meeting 2 weeks ago in D.C., there were discussions of 1 to even 2 million terrorist-affiliated folks that have come into our country since that January. And so what happens in that scenario is you have really a powder keg of people. We know that our cities are chock full of these folks and these steaming human masses right now. It only takes a moment, like if you all remember the summer of 2020 when George Floyd died, and what that did to our country, and we were told that we were racist again, and then just kind of the tearing apart, and then really you had the people that were opportunists, right? And there was absolute paid propagandist opportunists in the mix, the Antifas and certainly BLM was a big fuel of that, or the financial arm, and so. And so I would submit what we saw in Portland or Seattle or, the other, inflection points has a potentially being every city of this country. If we're talking the numbers we have, you just, in San Antonio, it takes 100 guys with a pick lighter in the greater metroplex to overwhelm our amazing first responders and have them diverted to other different ways. And look, we don't live like people who just crawled over the Darien Gap to get here, the places they came from, high walls and bedded glass to the top. No, we have, almost, vast majority of Americans have a deadbolt at the door and 2 panes of glass at their window, and they may have, a weapon, but come on. So the problem is in a chaotic situation, our presumption of safety is based on 911. That paradigm is going to be flattened and completely thrown off the table in a chaotic moment. And we have our own criminality here and opportunities. And so if you're trying to feed your family, what I was talking about with, whether no matter what country or region you come from, it's safety first for your family. Well, that goes both sides. So the defenders and the offenders, right? So if you have nothing and you are pushed on the edge of society, you've been made a second-class citizen, and you're really trying to strive for living, or you're an opportunist and you're a bad actor, you're going to make hay of that moment. And I would put those guys that walked up from Panama, up against your average Walmart shopper. We're just soft as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got every Texan saying, "Wow, I've got guns, whatever." Well, great. That's about that long. Okay. You cannot mass is one of the most critical elements of warfare. And if you have mass in the numbers that we've ingested, and then our own people that are already here, that will take advantage of that moment. We're separated anyways. What's the first thing that happens in any sort of national emergency with the cell phones? They go down. Can't use them. How many people have landlines now? The well off and the prepared, you say, well, I'll go out to my compound. Oh, okay. I bet you people know where that compound is. So I'm not trying to speak apocalyptic. I'm just saying we should be aware of a chaotic moment that could be then also predated on by our government. So I just want us thinking forward in scenarios and be wise. And actually, I'll just give the ghost right now. I'm going to end on love here, and I'm going to end on a solution that will hopefully prevent the worst case of what I'm talking about. I think the ground has been seeded to cause a chaotic moment, perhaps, that maybe flows into the Palestinian movement. We had the guy that just burned himself up here in San Antonio. These crazies, can be the sparks of another movement converging. Look, Americans, we need to be wise about this. Be as prickly as hell with your castle. Defend the castle, right? But be careful if you want to be, Rittenhouse, who's a great American, and I love his passion, what he did. But the pain and trouble he went through of doing the right thing will be then turned against us in probably the greatest gun grab ever. And I hate to just throw out the GUN term like that, but really it's that simple. If anybody paid attention to Australia when they were going through their COVID, angst, their government turned into a Gestapo thing that's unrecognizable to all people of the West, and really, choke held their population literally many times to comply, to stay indoors, to track them, in every way that they could, and it was terrible, right? Australia had lost their guns. They'd given up voluntarily their guns some 10 years or so prior to that. And look, it's happened to every nation, every free, God-loving nation that's lost their guns. The guns are for the defense of tyranny. That was the imagination of our founding fathers, which is why we have the Second Amendment. It's not to go hunting, it's to defend against a tyrannous government. We threw off England. So these things are, I would say the enemy is among us now in the form of illegal aliens and seeded people who are really bad and not trying to create economic opportunity. Because that's the majority of folks. The majority of folks came up here and you ask them why they're here. They say they want to work. And you know what? You and I would probably do that too to help our family out. Probably. But we have lied to them in doing that. They've arrived in something and walked through hell to get here. And nothing that that they probably imagined that would happen. And listen, the cartels own these people. They are owned on arrival. You never get out of the Vic of the cartel. Everybody that crosses, everybody, child, man, woman, has to go through the turnstile of the cartel, and it is the most profitable industry ever, and way more profitable than drugs. And just peddling human flesh in general, they found out is far more worthwhile. And hey, we're helping them, the U.S. government. Why? Because we bought off the lie that we need more votes. But that weight of that corruption and the weight of that mass of people can absolutely be used in the most brilliant military takeover ever of a country. And I talked about China earlier. So if you look at their modus operandi, China, they want to end us without ever firing a shot. You know, they are absolutely coordinated with the Mexican palace. Hey, the Chinese triad, their mafia, are in Mexico. All right, you know, they are helping, you know, push in another weapon of war, you know, the precursors and fentanyl itself into this country, which is a WMD. It's a social WMD, and it could be a physical one. How hard would it be to grind that stuff up and pulverize it? Whatever. You know, it's hard to think about how much we've ingested of just a poison that would be a population killer. You know, and say nothing of the social attack through the communist tactics, and I would submit, you know, people that, you know, reject America and its founding now, you know, and that's really found itself in one party. But I don't just blame one party. You know, I blame, you know, the corruption writ large, whether you're ideologically corrupted, and really you've lost why we are who we are as a country. You don't understand or know the source documents. I would say that's the Constitution, the Bible that informed it, and the Western canon, and then. Or you are financially corrupted, and you're just trying to get what you can out in the moment, and you are, you know, you're a Wall Street robber baron, and you don't want to be bounded by the provincial thing of a nation state. You really think you're bigger as a globalist, and you'll park your money somewhere else and whatever. You know, all of that is grotesque. You know, a perversion of what Americans are, and we are. America is only its nation. I mean, it's only the people. It's an idea. We don't have a unifying culture other than that. And it's worked. The secret sauce is that we are an immigrant nation. We are from everywhere. But that's through a time-tested, you talked about in a 62-year period investing 13 million. I mean, great point and awesome setup things, by the way. I mean, you know, we've sucked that in 3 years. We just passed $34 trillion in debt. Each one of these people is an untold amount of financial, you know, obligations to this country. Right now, they're getting on average $2,300 a man and woman, to a man or to a person. That's north of what veterans get on average. That's north of what Social Security beneficiaries receive on average. We can't afford this. People break us, which is another attack. We're diluting the dollar and helping, you know, get rid of as fast as we can the petrodollar, which has really been the source of our ability to do good in the world. And that's not our point, to do good in the world. Our point is to take care of Americans, and then by, you know, doing so, we can, you know, do the things that we're called to do as a country, as a people, so determined.
Commander, I'm going to jump in here.
I'm just going on. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I want to do a little Q&A, a little rapid fire, you know, try to get as much information out there as we can to the folks that are listening. You know, you had mentioned the airman in D.C. that just got done doing what he did. I think that there's a lot of propaganda coming in that is very dangerous from the Middle East right now. We have American sympathizers here that are marching the streets every single day and basically cheering on Hamas. Chanting Free Palestine. It's as if they forgot what happened on October 7th that provoked all of this terror. Now, do you see perhaps that terrorist organizations are beginning to infiltrate inside the military?
Okay. You know, I think, you know, that's a big question. I think what we're looking at are, and I don't know, I can't speak to it in any sort of with any specifics, because I don't have specific knowledge, and I think that just like America, the military is changing from within in a much more clever operation than infiltration. They're infiltrating the mind. You know, we are ingesting and they're enlisting folks that think differently about this country, and they're being taken up by the propaganda, as you said. And they are buying into this colonizer, colonized, victim, victimizer, you know, sort of Obama mentality he sowed in our country. And so so I just think it's part of that. Certainly there are people. Absolutely, there are people that make their way through, and the Border Patrol is a great target, and they guard against people coming in to try to infiltrate their ranks. So certainly that's happening. We have, I guess we compartmentalize information and people and different things. But if you're inside that wire, it's very dangerous, even if you're about private. So that is something that needs to be, paid attention to. But the people that come in, you can't just presume their patriotism any longer. And not that I want to ever get to the world where there's patriot tests. That smacks of bad things too. But when you take the oath to defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic, it implies that too. And nothing's pretty. The story of the Alamo, it's told that maybe 9 guys snuck out under the wire out of the Alamo and gave specific information to Santa Anna and his troops. This is nothing new. I mean, you look at, a Revolutionary War and General Washington's spies, the Civil War. I mean, so war's messy. Certainly in asymmetric warfare, and hybrid warfare, whatever term you want to use, these battles are a little harder to draw the lines on. People aren't necessarily wearing uniforms, and spies come in the form of phones and what have you, to say nothing of our own government that has, it's free use of domestic surveillance, for the greater good against the domestic threat that looks more akin to a political opposition to the current regime in power. And that's real. I can tell you, I came home from talking to Tucker because I couldn't get anybody to listen to my I thought very reasoned, and of course I wrote it, I think that, but hey, look, the day they mandated the military vaccine, the COVID vaccine in the military, August 2021, that didn't sit well. Half the force had decided to take it, half not. And I would submit the guys that did take it were fooled by bad information and propaganda lies. Quite unfortunate. But the half that had not, were adamant about that. And I tried to talk to everybody in a strategic way and say, look, high school science dictates we need a control group. We don't know what we have here. We do know we have the most healthy population anywhere. And we have the evidence of the numbers to date. 16 guys, when I wrote my thing, had succumbed to the virus, and they all had comorbidities. And I said, this is crazy. We're just, doing this mass experiment in total. We need to be able to drive the tanks and fly the airplanes at the end of this. So I said, hey, we need to have a control group. And that was what my first paper was about. And no one wanted to hear that. And so, anyways, I started to say that when I got home from Tucker trying to screen that on the mountaintops, I had a black Suburban in front of my house. I was tailed on to the last day I was out of the military by unmarked cars. My phone has not been my own since, and I only know that because I experienced this stuff overseas when I operated. And if you're the United States of America, there's nothing you can't touch. You have the best of the best. And if you were able to deem somebody as a domestic terrorist and put them on the FISA list, all resources are at your disposal. Well, and then everybody that they're tangential that they touch can also get wrapped in that list. I mean, we're getting really loose and fast with the Patriot Act, which was a terrible slide to the left of this country that none of us saw coming, and we all shook to the side of fear and away from faith and away from we gave the enemy our freedoms in that moment, and we've been doing it ever since. And governments will do what governments do, right? Jefferson warned against this. There's a tipping point for a bureaucracy, and they will start becoming their own self-licking ice cream cup. So I won't monologue again. I'm sorry, Brian.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just trying to get as much as we can out of you. We live in a country right now. I'm gonna mute your mic for a moment because of the noise until I get done with my question. We're living in a country right now where, social justice and, racism and diversity, equity, inclusion. I mean, heck, you can't watch a football game anymore without it says end racism, and it takes all of us. While our country is portraying massive racism toward Israel in the form of anti-Semitism. Now, it seems as if it's okay to be racist if you were racist against the people of Israel. Now, we have a lot of Jewish people that live here in the United States that are targeted every single day. Again, the amount of sympathizers that are out there on the streets of America that are basically every single day egging on and are looking for a fight here in America and really around the world. Now, if elected, like, how would you address this anti-Semitism that is running rampant in our country right now? And additionally, how can the left and how can the media and how can our government get away with expressing so much and displaying so much racism as they say we're a racist country over here when they're the ones being racist? It just makes no sense.
It's identity politics. We use that term. I think I'm muted still. Okay. Hey, fantastic point. And I never, fully answered your question before, and it was really an essential question. People need to not be fearful. Have the conversation. Talk to folks. Walk through. We have a residue of uncomfortableness, of races. We absolutely live in different neighborhoods, and that is inertia from the segregation in the first part of last century, or that lasted up to the first part of last century, and from our founding. Look, but that's an unfamiliarity with another people group. When I go to different countries, you kind of get used to walking through what we call squishy cultural ground, and you just kind of have to power through that and say, hey, look, this is who I am. I want to know who you are. And don't let that uncomfortableness be reframed into prejudice or racism. It's just we are still on the road to be reacquainting populations of this country. But I would say it's not fundamental racism or what they call structural racism. We are an American people. We threw off that. Well before us threw it off in England, we threw it off shortly after. Look, we have done what most countries in the world haven't. The most racist countries I've been in still exist today in that current format. There are millions of slaves in North Africa that have been bounded in that thing generationally. There are, China is the absolute most racist country I've ever been around. The Han Chinese, the ones that are in charge right now, the CCP, I would say there's lots of beautiful, wonderful Chinese people, but that cartel cult government embodies really the Han mentality of that they are preeminent of the world and they really think they should dominate everyone. And that's a driving force in that culture. So here we are, in our own country, and we are still an experiment, and we're an amalgamation of people. I think don't be fearful to ask questions. Reach across the aisle. Look, we have to, and I would say the church is absolutely, it's incumbent upon the church. And the church, I blame, the American Christian church, that they have ceded the ground just to retain, nonprofit status, to not speak into the public square of these issues and talk to their parishioners and speak to the public on issues that matter to all of this. And something that's, should be evident is that, whatever, the Christian church, no matter who's sitting in the pews, most of them have the same tenets. So, no matter what side of town you're on, the manifold, really, I think the instigator of getting back together and reuniting us just in proximity and familiarity and getting through this uncomfortableness is the church. That should be a manifold of hey, look, we believe the same things. Let's sit in the pews together and let's do church together. So that's one way. I would think we've been taught to be fearful because of political correctness. All of this is Chomsky's kind of training, right? Look, go back to the source documents so that you know what you believe and why you believe it. Really, most importantly, and then step through things that they're just being forced down your throat. If you hear something in stereo on every media outlet and it's just again and again and again, that is social conditioning. When I was in Sears school, same tactics. So, look, that's survival escape. That's survival school in the military. And so, look, I think, really the way forward here and the way we push about against this is gathering back in community, getting to know each other across town, going back to church, getting to know your neighbors, reuniting your family, as I said, and leading with love, MLK level, the Reverend MLK level love outside of your home. And to the immigration issue, you say, look, I'm sorry. We did a terrible thing as a nation because we're all, experiencing the same thing as a nation, no matter who did it. The 15 million, let's just for fun say, illegals are here, and they all broke the law getting here. We need to say, look, I'm sorry. We did you wrong. If you cooperate with us and gather back to a surge asylum court capacity and agree to go back to country of origin, a third country that we negotiate with, because we're paying a lot of them, and we should certainly incentivize them to do that and give them a little something to go. And if they cooperate in that regard, then we'll say, hey, you get to apply again. But the beginning of that line is outside of this country at a consulate. All right. If you don't comply, that's easy. You get put on the baddie list. We have the resources to go find you, and we should. All right. So that's a real, and we can get the word out to them. We actually have their connections, and certainly we can public broadcast this. So here we are at a moment that has to happen now. I really think we have months, not years, before this problem hits an inflection point and we enter into the same reactionary phase again. And this next op, if you will, is to fruition here. And again, the worst of that is, as I said, I think gun grab or certainly a seed. Okay, certainly see, what's going on. So, hey, look, Brian, I think I'm out of time. And this beautiful day here, I'll have to say, the Alamo's as ever was, and I love it. But any last question for you?
Oh no, I was, just gonna add, you had said, to basically it's okay to have that conversation. Americans shouldn't be fearful. But then they see the complete opposite. The American people are censored on social media. They're basically censored in so many different facets of life. They see asylum claims that are absolutely bogus, and the people have lost faith, and they see our nation is absolutely jeopardized right now, and our government has lost all credibility. So Americans are tired. And so if elected to Congress, how are you going to help regain some of that credibility that's been lost? Because, I know people that right now are like, I will never vote again. And this country has absolutely betrayed me, and it's betrayed veterans for generations. And really, at the end of the day, there's really nothing united anymore about the United States. It's as if we're just land. We've lost our sovereignty. And really, where do we move forward from here? And it's tough. It's a really tough one to explain to people that are literally grieving their nation every single day, because it's kind of dying a very slow, methodical death right before our very eyes.
It is. Everybody uses the frog metaphor. Who Kelly did at CPAC. It was brilliant to hear a El Salvadorian say, hey, look, America, you're about cooked. So I would push back on the slow. It's the old, it's slow until it's fast. I think we're about, out of the pot and on the French table, about to be, diced up and served. So it's here. What do we do to push back? Well, we're a last-minute country. Look, we entered in both the world wars last minute, and so look, we can do that again. This line doesn't get up, unless it has to, in major movements. The essential thing is that we do have people that are not fearful to raise the guide on and move forward and step out, free speech, step out, and insist on their rights in a civil way. Look, what Matt Gaetz did with the speaker battle should inspire all of us that the halls of Congress can work. I met him a couple months ago, and he said, Jay, I just need 8 guys. I need 8 guys to do real damage. I just complimented him on doing that as one guy, having the spine to switch out the speakers. We'll see what Speaker Johnson does. I have great hope and faith in him. that working out. It's a tough place he's in. Certainly a man of God, and I support. But look, but Matt Getz did was show us that this thing can work if you aren't afraid to stand up and push back against all the forces. I mean, the forces we're talking about here are the uniparty, are our enemies that are in league with a lot of our members of Congress under the rubric of commerce. There's a big game afoot here. I keep implicating China because they have the capacity absolutely to orchestrate these things. Their game of chess is far more complicated than our game of chess. That's called Go, and actually, militarily or geostrategically, they have a theory called a Chinese thing, really called the system of systems theory. And just think of thousands of spinning plates at the same time, and half of which you can't see, but they're all coordinated. So, give you a shot of the Alamo here. So, I would say what I can do is stand up for our essential rights. I can push back on so much power being sucked up on the federal level. Really, we're beyond the sort of the cultural level and the shift that we're experiencing in this country, which is all part of the same movement, if you will. But congressionally, we are doing way too much as a nation. There are three things that our Constitution enumerates for the federal government to take care of. It's national defense, interstate commerce, and foreign affairs. Everything else should be pushed down as low as possible, so we can manage it personally. We know people, if more locally, if they're trying to take advantage of a situation. Our money's not so far apart from us that it can be separated from us, and then we're begging for crumbs, to be trickle back. We are a republic. This is not a constitution. We are a constitutional republic. We are not acting as the nation's. We're not acting in accordance with the nation's understanding, and so we need to shake loose the vice grip hold that the halls of power in DC have wrested out of our hands, or that we have yielded. States need to step into the breach again and start doing their essential thing and take care of the people, and then people need to hold them accountable. So I blamed the churches earlier for ceding ground in the public space. I blame parishioners or all of us for allowing this to happen, not being informed, not being interested, not voting, not trying to push back in all the ways that we can as people that are really the employers of the folks that are predating on us. So specifically, we can absolutely shake up DC like Matt Getz did, but we can also not stand for any more lawlessness from the DOJ, and the Congress holds the purse strings. So they can make DOJ change. Look and investigate. Investigative powers there. I think we could absolutely this CR that's coming up, this continuing resolution. We need some guys and gals with some spine and say, look, no more boondoggle money sent to Ukraine, which is a distraction, America. I spent my career pushing back against China and Russia and trying to keep them apart. Well, this administration has slammed them together. Now they're two sides of the same ugly coin, and working together. And Ukraine is a distraction, and I liken it to a military sort of analogy. As the first squad leader went in, is wounded by the sniper, and everybody else is going in, getting killed, trying to pull that guy out, and that's our treasury, and that's our armament. That's all flowing in right now. We're just kind of hook, line, sinker caught to what has become just another 20-year debacle, God forbid, and our national treasury and God forbid ever our blood going flowing out towards it. So, but we're looking in that direction while our southern border is the enemy is smashing on our southern border and infiltrating our country. So, and that's real. That's real. The foreign terrorists that have come into our country is a number that nobody really realizes. And so, here we are. What can we do? We can become informed, pull back in our communities. Congress can go do its job and not pay for this Snoop Dogg level, gone wild sort of government And oh, by the way, remember we have friends in Saudi Arabia that we don't need to piss off, or that, hey, look, we have more oil standing underneath me, and all of us in this nation that was bequeathed to us. We could absolutely dominate the world's oil and be the biggest bargaining chip with that oil, and how it is traded. The fact that the oil is predominantly traded using the U.S. dollar really, keeps this whole ship going and allows us to have continuing resolution still at infinitum. But we don't need to do that. We need to have a balanced budget. But very quickly, we need to turn on the pumps and the drills and to get back to dominance, because security and economy are absolutely hand in hand. Those things have to go. You can't have one without the other. It's a chicken and an egg.
Sure.
So and that's important. But people need to buy in to what we're doing. If we go to war, that needs to go back to dollar a year mint. That needs to go back to every corner of the country being involved, so that there is skin in the game, as opposed to go to the shopping mall and get out your credit card and spend so we can go have some foreign adventures. We need to get back to treaties and War Powers Act being actually a function of Congress and congressional voting. Look, my formula is simple. Work on the mandate of the people. The special interests have a vice grip on our folks. Why? Because we give them so much DC, and there's so much money flowing out of there because we've given them so much to do. And there's no man or woman in a 2-year term that can make heads or tails of what the job they've been given as a congressman or senator in a 6-year term even. When 6 months out of the time, they're not fundraising, they're not campaigning for the next cycle. So it's crazy because they're just doing too much. When you get a phone book sized bill on your desk the night before it's due to be voted, that's just buffoonery, and should be you should vote nay just on principle, and say no, go back and let's do something that makes sense. Let's not rely on the the Beltway bandits and the lobbyists to tell me what's in there, or Nancy Pelosi or whomever to say you'll read it later. That is that's manslaughter. That's reckless endangerment. That is it's so you can't even speak good governance in the same sentence.
Sure. Yeah. The government is reckless. It's gotten completely out of control, out of hand, too big. People have lost all faith, and it's going to be hard picking up moving forward. But it requires men like you to stand up in the face of adversity and put your name in the ring and run for Congress. So election day market here in Texas. Commander Jay Furman is running for Congress in Texas 28, and show up to the polls early. Get your friends out there, your family members, your community, and remember, folks, this election will have consequences on what we will look like as a nation moving forward in the United States of America. And with that, Commander, we sincerely appreciate you joining us today on the program, and we wish you nothing but the best moving forward.
That's awesome. Thanks again, Brian, for everything. I tell you, it's hard to fundraise and get volunteers out here. Americans have been addled a little bit. Whatever reason, all these events that have happened, call it a shot. I don't know. But it's hard for all of us. I was at CPAC, and every candidate, every conservative candidate is like, I can't pull money out of people's pockets. If people say, hey, this is bad, worst, time ever, most important election ever. But look, so find a conservative candidate, vet them very, thoroughly, and contribute where you can. Show up or give. So I'm at commanderfurman.com. I also want to plug the 231 signatories that demand accountability to the military. Part of that, and that needs to happen. We need a little truth and reconciliation. A 9/11 commission style moment there will happen during the vaccine mandate. But thanks, Brian, for everything that you're doing. And please keep it up, sir.
Thank you, sir. Folks, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the program. It has never been easier to listen to this podcast. We are on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search Today with Tally. Also learn more about me and my personal story, and perhaps even get my new book at BrianTally.com. That's BrianTally.com. Folks, remember to stay inspired, stay encouraged, stay motivated, and always stay in the fight, especially in these crazy, unprecedented times, not only in America, but in the world. Until next time, for the Today with Tally podcast, this is Brian Talley. Good night. Semper Fi. God bless.